You are going to be folding your foldable, and I'll tell you how to fold it in just a second. Right there. So on page 59, you guys are going to label that circles, and you're going to make sure you get down the goal, which is to determine the equation of a circle as well as graph it. Okay? Now all your notes are going to go on into your foldable. There's just going to be one thing that you're going to write down outside of the goal and the title, and that is the formulas for the equation of a circle. Okay? Now, say now, I'll say in the future. Equation of a circle, you will need to know the general form. The reason why is because you'll see this on the SAT, on the ACT, and those formulas are not given to you. Okay? So, might as well start now. However, the other things that we're learning about in this unit, which is called conics, we're going to learn about ellipses, hyperboles, and parabolas, but those formulas will be given to you. Okay? So circles is going to be the only one that you're going to need to know out of this whole group. Okay? But it's pretty simple. All right? It's actually quite familiar if you remember anything from geometry. Okay? You are going to need to write this down. This is the only thing that you're going to write down outside of the goal. That's going to go on page 59. And that is the standard form for a circle. There are two forms, but they pretty much are saying the same thing. The first one is x squared plus y squared equals r squared. And the other one is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. The only difference between them is the center. Okay, the first one, the one on the left, has a center of 0, 0. And the other one, the one on the right, has a center at HK. So that's something other than the origin as the center.
So we need to write down the center and radius.
Write down whatever you need to feel that if you ever forget something. Okay? Now clearly the radius is the square root of r squared. That's what the r represents. It represents the radius. So it's whatever r is. But the centers, they vary depending on
So the left,
Is that an H? Is that
x
X minus
minus h, yes.
so the left is if it's at the origin, and the right is anywhere but the origin.
Correct. On your foldable, everybody pick up their foldable. Okay? The four squares-ish, they're on the front, okay? This is the front of the foldable. You basically are folding it down to create your foldable, okay? So the title should show, and all the work should be in the front. Just make a quick little fold, all right? So let's take a look at our first little flap in our foldable. We're going to write the equation of a circle given the center and a point. This is probably the easiest type of problems that you can get when it comes to writing the equation of a circle. All you need to know is your formula. So, for example 1, we're given a center of 2, -3, and a radius of 4. Okay? Now, I'm just going to write this down because I don't have the formula right there in front of me, okay? I'm just writing this down as a reference. You do not have to write this down. As long as you know the formula, you can write the equation of a circle given the center and the radius. All you do is plug in.
Oh.
The center is a point. That point is HK from that previous slide that I was talking about.
These two are opposite.
So as simple as that. That's going to be x minus 2 squared, a third of the way through, plus y. Now check this out. It's in the formula. It's a minus k. But if k is already negative, that's going to turn into a positive. So it's going to be a plus 3 squared equals 4 squared. What's 4 squared? 16. So this is your equation.
Oh, that's the answer?
That's the answer.
Really?
Really, really.
No. Wow. You're lying to me.
I kid you not. But the thing is, you got to know the formula. And you have to remember that it's x minus h and y minus k. Sometimes students tend to put pluses when they should be minuses here and here. Okay? Same thing with example 2. We pretty much just plug it into the formula. Now, if my center is 0, negative 5, that means h is 0 and k is negative 5. Now, when I go to plug in 0 for h, x minus 0 is just going to be what? X. So if you put x minus 0, the quantity squared, I'm not going to count off, but you can kind of shorthand and just say x squared. Plus y plus 5 squared equals 36. And we get 36 how?
Squaring the radius.
Squaring the radius.
You get the diameter.
Okay? Now, be careful. Make sure you read the problem all the way through. If it says, center 0, negative 5, and diameter 6, that means you're going to have to do what?
Divided by 2.
Divided by 2. Okay, so the diameter was 6, then the radius would have been 3, and that's what you would have plugged into the formula, okay? Just make sure you double check that, okay? That's how you might get tripped up. We're good? Okay. So, go to the next one. We're going to do the center and a point. I know I said center and point before. I meant center and radius before. We're doing center and a point this time. Okay? Now, unlike the other two examples, I do still have my center. Okay? So I can kind of already start doing that. It's going to be x minus 2 squared plus y minus 3 squared. But what's the issue?
You have a point, not a radius.
I have a point, not a radius, and I need my radius in order to finish this out. So, how do we do that? Not that one. We're actually going to use the one on the right side. We're going to use the general equation for a circle. Okay? So, I'm just writing this as a reference. You do not have to write this down. I'm just writing this as a reference. Well, what we can do is, since we kind of already have r squared in this formula, we can use this point as x and y and our center as h and k and plug in. So if you know the equation, you can figure out your radius when you're given a center and a point. So when I go to plug that in, that's going to be negative 3 minus 2 squared plus 1 minus 3 squared equals r squared. Isn't that the back end of my formula? Isn't that r squared? So if I can just figure out what this number is, I have my answer. I have the last bit. Then we just do the math. We're taking the point in the center and plugging it into the equation of a circle. What's negative 3 minus 2? So it's going to be negative 5 squared. And then what's 1 minus 3? Negative 2 squared. And the beauty about this, you should only be working with positive numbers. Okay?
Or not squared, but
Mm-hmm. What's negative 5 squared? Negative 2 squared. So my radius squared is going to equal 29. That's what goes into my formula, and I have my equation of my circle. No. Now, if it did ask you to identify the radius, then you have to go that one last step and take the square root. You would get a decimal. You could also just leave it as the square root of 29.
Okay.
Questions? Main thing, just know the formula, okay?
basically that's all we do.
Mm-hmm. What about this one?
Same as last one. Oh, it's a diameter endpoint.
It's the diameter endpoints. Everybody knows what the diameter is in a circle, right?
Right. The full.
Refresh your memory. It goes straight through the center, okay? And divided by 2, and we get the radius. Now, we just have an issue. We have actually 2 issues here. Don't know the radius, and we don't know the center. But the center is in the middle between those 2 points. How do you find the middle point between the two endpoints?
Add them up.
Add them up and divide by 2, okay? I have to find the x midpoint, which should be pretty simple.
Just 3.
It is 3, but if you're ever curious, just do 3 plus 3 divided by 2. That's 6 over 2, which is 3. Way, okay? And then we have 5 plus negative 7 divided by 2. What's 5 plus a negative 7?
So it'd be -1.
So I have my center. Okay.
3 -1.
Is everyone okay?
And now
It works that way every time with the midpoint. Okay?
we plug that in.
We can start writing our equation. It's going to be x. It's going to be x
X
minus 3 squared,
y
y
plus 1 squared.
plus 1 squared. Very good, because that's a negative, so it's going to turn to a positive. I still don't have my radius. But I can do the same process that I did before. Because now that I have my center, I can use either of these 2 points to find my radius.
How do you know which equation to use?
You talking about which point to use?
Just talking about the two equations.
Yeah, the two equations.
Without x.
It's based off your center.
It is based off your center.
0, then you use the one on the left.
Very good.
If it's any other number than 0, 0, you use the h to the k.
You got that? So,
But example 2 only has 1 0.
example 2. Okay, hold on. Example 2. But see, is it at 0, 0? So then we have to use we're gonna have to use this one. Like Brian said, the only time you should use the one on the left is if your center is 0, 0. If it's not 0, 0, you gotta use this one up here.
Oh, I see.
Okay? So, remember example 5 and how we found the radius? I want you guys to find the radius using the center that we just found and using one of the 2 points. It doesn't matter which one. Okay? So pick which point you want to use and plug it into the equation of a circle. I'm just going to use the first point because it's the first one there. Okay? That's going to be x. So I'm using x and y. This is h and k. So that's going to be 3 minus 3 squared plus 5 minus a negative 1 squared. Well, 3 minus 3 is just 0. And then what's 5 minus a negative 1? 6. So 0 squared is 0. 6 squared is, and that is the part I put into my formula to write the equation of my circle. Yes?
Say we're looking for the diameter from the radius, right? Why couldn't we just simply take the left square root while they all have squares? Get rid of square roots in general.
Because the reason why we can't just take the square root here is because we're adding these 2 together. If it had just been one single expression being squared, then we can just drop the square roots and everything. No, it's the easiest. All right, let's write an equation from a graph. Okay? Graph is super, super simple.
Oh, wow.
All we have to do is find 2 pieces of information, okay? Because we got to write our equation. What 2 pieces of information do we need?
This is 0 and
The center and the radius. And from a picture, we just need to know how to read points,
Yeah.
okay? What's the center in example 3? -2, 4. What is the radius of this circle?
2.
2. So now that we have our information, we just write our equation from here, okay? We still got to write the equation, yes, because that's what we're doing. We're writing an equation. So that's going to be x plus 2 squared plus y minus 4 squared equals 4. Because remember, we have to square the radius.
Wow.
Okay? I want you to do example 4. Okay, so what's our center?
-2, 1.
-2, 1. What's our radius?
-1. Wait, no.
Our radius is what?
Oh, there is 2.
It's 3. So you start from your center. You can go straight up, 1, 2, 3. You can go straight to the side, 1, 2, 3. You can go straight down, 1, 2, 3. You can go straight across, 1, 2, 3. The radius is the same from the center. Yes.
Isn't it -1? So.
It is a -1. Thank you. So when we go to plug it in, that's going to be x plus 2 squared plus y plus 1 squared equals 9. All we're doing is just plugging into the formula from there.
And now we do the opposite, right?
And now we do the opposite. You're given the equation. You have to graph the circle.
Actually, that's going to be too like,
Here's the equation.
Until you get a
You
cube.
need 2 pieces of information. You need the center and you need the radius.
3, 1.
Well, I don't think we have the radius, do we?
Yeah, we do.
We do? It's a cube?
You always have the radius.
It's 3.
The radius is 3, and you get
that's
3
a
by
9.
doing what?
Oh no, that looks like a cube to me.
Square root of 9.
You were blind.
Remember, the formula is r squared, so r squared equals 9. You take the square root, that's how you get the radius. What's the center?
3,
3, 1. So I plot 3, 1, which is my center. And then the easiest way to graph a circle, go up the radius, down the radius, left the radius, right the radius.
Did that.
So up 3,
It is super
down
easy.
3,
Honestly,
right
square.
3,
You can't draw.
and left 3. And from there, you do your best to make a circle, okay? It shouldn't be a square, a diamond,
Oh boy.
okay? A parallelogram, nothing like that.
It's a rounded
Okay?
diamond.
Do your best. The way I do a circle is I start from the top and I make a curve around here. Go back to the top, make a curve around there, and then I do the exact opposite from the bottom. Curve, and curve. and then I just do this just to kind of confirm that, hey, this is a circle. Okay? There we go.
Right, so
Mine's spirals.
The last one is a throwback to first quarter, first semester. Okay?
Whoa. Sorry.
This is nowhere near the general form for a circle. Okay? But we can get it there. All right? You need your x's together. You need your y's together. So that's going to be x squared plus 8x plus y squared minus 4y. And that number, that 11, I'm going to move it to the other side.
Equals -11.
So it's going to equal negative 11.
That seems counterintuitive.
Now we're going to do a concept that we did back in first quarter when we were talking about quadratics. Do y'all remember completing the square?
No,
Yes.
I missed that one.
Kind of. I know what you're talking about.
All you have to do is take your b, the number that's attached to x or y, because we got to do it twice.
No.
Take that number, divide it by 2. What do you get?
4,
And then you take that number and square it.
16.
You put it there, and you put it here.
So you get 5.
what?
On the
This is called completing the square. You take half of b and you square it. That number that you get goes beside the x's, and you add it to the other side. You do the same thing with the y's. That's a -4. You take half of that, which is what?
2.
-2. You square it and you get,
+4.
and you add it to both sides.
Yep.
Now from here, can't you factor that x squared plus 8x plus 16
Yes.
to what?
X.
X plus
4x.
Not minus +4. X plus 4, X plus 4.
x plus 4, x plus 4. Also written x plus 4 squared
Oh my gosh.
You blown? Mind blown right now?
G.
Do the same thing. What's y squared minus 4y plus 4 when you factor it?
No idea.
Y minus 2, y minus 2. Or y minus 2 squared.
Silly bitch.
What's negative 11 plus 16 plus 4? 9. There's your
9.
equation of the circle.
Thank you for not stealing my story.
What's the center?
I don't know, you just gave it to
Or negative.
Negative 4, 2, because it's the opposite. Remember, it's x minus h in the formula. What's your radius? And then you graph it.
Wow.
Yes.
In the end, no matter what, is it just going to be like, since you have the b up there,
Yes.
4, it's going to be x plus 4 squared no matter what.
Yep, that's why I wrote this out. Everybody see these numbers? Those are the same numbers that went into the factored form.
Teachers, real quick, we do have one bus change to.
And so this is how you find the equation of the circle as well as graphing circles.